And welcome back. We are ready. That was our short little commercial break. Basically, just enough time for me to grab a little bit of drink, wet my whistle, and get onto our running back watch list for the 2022 season. We've talked about the playoffs here. We talked about some of these running backs who are or are not a factor going forward as far as the playoffs are concerned. But let's talk about some of these running backs heading into the 2022 season. Major, who is that one running back right now that, I look at who we're looking at trading away. So I want to know who you're trading away. And there's a common theme of these guys that we're looking at moving on from here in 2022. Major, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with King Henry. I love Henry. Don't get me wrong. Just two things in fantasy, especially in Dynasty. I tend to stay young. I like my players to be at least 25 years younger, 26 around there. So when I start getting my players, especially running backs that is over 26 years old, I look to move. And Derrick Henry right now has a lot of momentum for the way he started the season. The injury did ding him a little bit, so you won't be able to get as much as you would at the beginning of the season. But I think if he performs well in the playoffs, he will. I mean, you can get that value back. But Derrick Henry is just a little bit older. This is the first time he's really been hurt. And I just want to keep an eye on to see if he can, like, next year's going to be a big year for Derrick Henry. If he can stay injury free next year, I think he'll be okay. But usually when you have running backs who start to get hurt, it's continues like the person you're going to talk about next and a few other ones. But if you get a quarterback that's starting to age a little bit and they get hurt, they tend to continue to get hurt throughout their career. So if Derrick Henry, we know what he does in the offseason with the cryo tanks and the workouts, and the guy's a monster off the field. So that's why he's always in shape and always ready to go, and why he came back from his injury so quickly this season. But I just keep an eye on his next year. That'll be a big year for him. But I'm out on Derrick Henry at this point, just because I like to typically stay young in my dynasty teams.
Yeah, it's not like we're saying Derrick Henry's bad. He is going to be running back 1, running back 2 next season, as long as he is fully recovered from, I think it was a Liz Frank injury on that foot, or we've heard about the horrors of that, jump cutting and all that other stuff. Derrick Henry is a different dude, right? We can agree with that. The dude, he's a monster. I don't think his jump cutting is part as big as his game as his power is. He can beat your speed. He can beat your power. He can do everything. He's 28 years old.
Yeah.
And in this business of fantasy football, I'm always a firm believer it's better to get out a year early than a year late.
There you go.
And right now, I think with Derrick Henry, you still have that name going forward. You've still got 2-3 productive seasons ahead of him that you can kind of push to another prospective manager there when you're in trade negotiations, much like my guy here, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is a little bit younger. He's 25 years old, but those injuries are adding up year in, year out. And you know what? As good as he has been, I don't know if I can have him on my roster not playing again. This is the second time in 2 seasons here in which he's been there. When he's in, he is the best running back in the game. There is no question about it. For fantasy purposes, there is no better running back. But when he's not in your lineup, he's getting you 0, which means Zach Moss is outscoring him, right? That's basically what it comes down to. If you are getting outscored by Zach Moss, if you're getting outscored by Samaje Perine, you're not doing me any good. And Christian McCaffrey has not been doing fantasy managers any good the last couple seasons, being hurt. I know it's not really his fault, but hey, you mentioned it. You're a former junior college running back. These injuries add up. When you hit your age, you're 25. This is getting old as far as running backs are concerned. Derrick Henry, 28. He's at the peak of where they start to tail off typically. Henry is superhuman. Let's not kid ourselves. I don't think he's going to tail off anytime soon. But with most of these running backs, it's like, hey, we got paid, and now we're going to drop off. We've seen that time and time again with some of the best running backs. Todd Gurley, that comes to mind right away. Do you want Christian McCaffrey to be the next Todd Gurley? I don't. I don't think he will be, but there is going to be that concern with those injuries that are starting to add up. So for me, Christian McCaffrey, he's still got the name. He's still got a couple productive seasons, if healthy, that I can pedal off to another manager somewhere along the way and maybe get a couple younger players that I have a little bit more interest in when we start talking about our dynasty rankings a little bit later, that I feel comfortable in making that trade and pulling that trigger. Now, speaking of pulling
my bad. With Christian McCaffrey, I think I think having Chuba Hubbard there is actually going to help him stay healthier, but it's going to eat into his, target share. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, those injuries, I've traded him this season for like crumbs for the most part. I don't remember the deal, but it was like a receiver and like a first round pick. So it wasn't like the haul you typically would get for Christian McCaffrey. So I think people are starting to get a little turned off by the injuries.
Well, when I talk about pulling the trigger, I'm not just talking about fantasy trades here. I'm talking about fantasy football subscriptions. Head over to fantasypoints.com. Pull that trigger on that 30% off today. If that's not enticing enough, look at the media group that they've got going on over there. We've got the True North Fantasy Football crew, Travis Seal, Ty McLaughlin. They got things kicking off. The Dynasty Happy Hour with our boy Tyler Gunther, kicking it off each and every week. P2 Dub Fantasy, Nick Scripp, a good friend of yours, on the Sunday show with Fantasy Points. The Smoke Show, Josh, Smokey Hell, Nelson, each and every week. Of course, you can find the Dynasty Vipers. We're kicking it off. Edward Porras there with the Injury Podcast, Triple Play Fantasy Crew. They're joining us. Campus to Canton, Austin Nash, Colin Decker, each and every week. The list goes on, and this family continues to grow over at fantasypoints.com. So get that subscription for some of the best analysis in fantasy football. Speaking of more analysis, let's talk about that player that you are trading for in 2022. Give me some analysis. Give me some of that Sunday morning fantasy points special here with the running back that you are trading for in 2022.
Yeah, my favorite running back going into 22 is going to be Cam Akers. I'm trying to get him. It may be a little too late now, but if you grabbed him when he was down, you get the cookies. Like, this guy is the man. You seen how he ran. Like, I don't think people understand what an Achilles injury is. Like, that's when your foot is not connected anymore. Like, when you do this with your foot, you can't do that anymore. And for a running back, that's all we do. So, like, him coming back in the same year like this, we seen someone as Kobe Bryant, the Mamba mentality. We seen him take 1.5 to 2 years to get back from it. And that's the Mamba mentality. This guy's a maniac was a maniac working out. So Cam Akers coming back in the same season and giving that performance he gave last week, I'm all in. I'm selling everybody to get Cam Akers. I think he's going to have a monster year next year.
When an injury is named after a demigod, it's not good. Achilles, we watched the movie Troy. Everyone's watched the movie Troy. That was the way he went down. That was the end of him. That was the end of Achilles, was popping his Achilles. Okay. So I get it. And this man, he's coming back. We could talk about Cam. I think you're a little bit higher on him than most people are now. But I think you could still get that injury discount. I think there's still people that are a little bit concerned where they are. I think there's people that are willing to sell him, not knowing what tomorrow holds when it comes to Cam Akers here. So I think now you can still get a bit of a discount. I think people are trying to, this is our time to sell. We've got something to go for. So I think you can move him there. But watching what he did, it looks like the burst was there. A little bit of rust was still on display, especially in the passing game there. But one catch, 40 yards. He probably should have another reception there that got called back there for 18. Some good runs that were there, a couple of runs that got negated. He was on pace for a very good game, more than what the stat line had shown. Now, for me, I'm following your model here. I'm going young. I want to get young, and I'm willing to overpay at this point right now to get me some more Javonte Williams and some more Elijah Mitchell. I went on air before the season talking about how much better Elijah Mitchell was than Trey Sermon, and I got laughed at, like seriously ridiculed, which I'm used to because, hey, 90% of the things that come out of my mouth are worth ridiculing. Let's be honest here right now. But Elijah Mitchell was a guy I absolutely loved, and I really thought that he'd be the 1A, 1B. I thought the San Francisco 49ers were looking to basically replicate the success they had with Raheem Mostert there, Jeffrey Wilson, a 1A, 1B type guy. They've got that with Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell. I don't think Elijah Mitchell's ready to give up that other running back position to anyone outside of Deebo Samuel. I don't think Trey Sermon's going to get a sniff of that backfield. It's going to be Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel from this point on. Trey Sermon may get some looks here and there, but man, I really love Elijah Mitchell. And maybe I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but I'm willing to overpay to get him. And obviously, Javonte Williams, man, Dynasty talk here right now. He is within the top 6 Dynasty running backs right now. Right now, Melvin Gordon, free agent. He could be on his way out. We'll talk about him here shortly. If that is the case where Melvin Gordon moves, and Melvin Gordon was good this year, let's not kid ourselves. He put up some good numbers. They basically split, I think, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I think it was either 800, 900 yards apiece in the running game. That's a lot of rushing yards that could potentially fall on Javonte Williams, who has a habit of breaking tackles. Okay, so for me, Javonte Williams, Elijah Mitchell, I need more, and I'm willing to overpay to get them on my line.
Sound like you're trying to talk to someone in your leagues, like you're willing to overpay. But can I add one thing with Elijah Mitchell? I usually don't get running backs wrong. I was totally wrong on him and evaluated him last year coming out in the draft. I thought he was a straight line runner with not that much speed. He would go down on the first tackle or the first sign of a hit. He would go down, but he ran hard. This Elijah Mitchell I'm seeing, this dude is shifty. He's moving left and right. He's making people miss. He has a burst. Like I missed this one. And I usually don't get running backs wrong. That's like my forte. I'm a running back guy, and I was totally wrong about Mitchell. So kudos to this guy.
Well, let's see if you can redeem yourself here at the next one. Who is that player most likely to disappoint fantasy managers in 2022?
I'm going David Montgomery. I'm just not a big fan of him. His game is a little boring. He kind of reminds me of the Emmitt Smith type of running back where it's the most boring game you ever seen, but he ends up with 100 yards. So, he's a good running back. Do not get me wrong. But again, having a young quarterback, we don't even know who the coach is going to be at this point. We don't know what kind of offense they're going to run at this point. There's way too many question marks for Montgomery at this point, and I'm off right now. I'm selling it to get out of there. Hopefully they get the offensive coordinator, running quarterback, and all that good stuff situated. But I think a running quarterback is going to eat into a lot of Montgomery's like rushing touchdowns around the goal line. You're going to get a lot of more sneaks and stuff like that. So, I think he can and maybe will disappoint. So keep an eye on David Montgomery.
And for me, I've got 2 here that I'm thinking are going to disappoint managers right now. One goes to one of my favorite backs in the entire National Football League, James Robinson. Is he Cam Akers? Can he make this comeback and all of a sudden have that explosion and all that shiftiness? I don't know. Is Travis Etienne going to absolutely negate any value that he has in Jacksonville next year? It's a possibility. Where will he get traded? I don't know. So for me, there's a lot of questions that circle around James Robinson heading into 2022. If you can get him for pennies on the dollar, so to speak, as far as a fantasy trade goes, then yeah, okay, go ahead, take a swing at that. I don't think anyone wants to trade him at a discount right now because of what they may have invested in him to begin with. But for me, I think he's going to disappoint because I don't think he's going to have that Cam Akers type recovery from the Achilles injury. I mean, I know we joke about the Achilles being the new ACL as far as injuries are concerned, but I just don't see it being there yet. So for me, I'm out on James Robinson. I think he's going to have a disappointing season next year. Maybe the year after he has a good season, a year post Achilles injury. But for me right now, I'm out. And the other one I'm out on right now, and I'm not out on him in Dynasty, I'm out on him next year, and that's Najee Harris because no quarterback next year. We're talking about Mason Rudolph right now as a quarterback. There's literally tweets going around on Twitter talking about Mason Rudolph is the quarterback going. It's not going to happen, by the way. Pittsburgh is going to find someone else. But they can't just
beat out Haskins.
Listen, they've got to find a quarterback. They've also got to find an offensive line. This line was not good. Najee Harris was getting hit in the backfield more than he was getting hit after the line of scrimmage, okay? It is not a good situation to be in. And if you're putting all your eggs in the basket there for Najee Harris, yes, he had a great rookie year. Yes, he is still going to be a top 5 running back for dynasty purposes. I just think until they get that quarterback situation situated and get that offensive line addressed. And maybe they can do them both in the draft. Maybe they go out free agency, bring themselves in a Garner Minshew, or maybe we talk about maybe Deshaun Watson finds his way into Pittsburgh, or Kirk Cousins maybe ends up in Pittsburgh. I don't know, but that offensive line needs to be addressed if Najee Harris is going to have a good season next year. I'm not saying he's going to be horrible. I'm just going to say people are going to have unreasonable expectations coming off the rookie year that he had, and I don't see him meeting those expectations in 2022. So for me, I think he's going to disappoint a lot of fantasy managers next season.
When I seen you talk about Najee, I kind of was like, "What the hell is he going to say?" But you kind of won me over with that because I think he's going to be running against a loaded box every week. So he's going to be the focal point of every defense going forward. So I'm with you on that one.
And they could very well address everything that we talked about. They could get a good, solid quarterback this year, and they could draft really well in the draft, get a couple of offensive linemen that are going to help things out for them. But right now, the way everything's situated, the way it looks at this moment, I mean, we're making these predictions in January, right? We haven't even hit the draft. Playoffs aren't even over. We don't know what the spring programs look for these guys, training camp, everything. So lots of things. Free agency can change in a second how we look at these players moving forward. Now, we talk about guys who are going to disappoint us, but let's put some positivity back out there at the running back position there, Major. Who is that bounce back player for you?
I don't even know if it's considered a bounce back because he didn't really get started. So I'm going Travis Etienne. I'm really excited for that Jaguars team. I have the same feeling about this team I had about the Bengals before they kind of took this next step. I think they have all the pieces they need to really be a force in that division. So, and I think Travis Etienne is pure talent. I think he's one of the most well-rounded running backs in the game with the receiving ability, with the running ability. I think he could be like an Austin Eckler type player. I do think they need to figure this thing out with James Robinson. I don't know, like you said, they're going to trade him, keep him around. But I think Travis Etienne is going to have a big season next year.
And it's weird because I don't know if they can actually trade him because you're only going to get pennies on the dollar. What are you going to get? A 6th-round draft pick for him? Maybe.
Right.
Maybe you trade a 5th-round draft pick to get a 4th round for him. You know what I mean? We're talking about the running back position. There's not a whole lot of value in the trade market moving forward there. For me, we've talked about him already, and we're going to talk about him some more because this is a pro Cam Akers show. Mm-hmm. Now, I put this down before the game took place on Monday Night Football.
True.
I said Cam Akers was going to be my bounce back in 2022. Apparently, it's going to happen a little bit sooner. It's happening right now. So, yay me for an early prediction there. But I had this down, I swear, back on Sunday, maybe Saturday. It was even on Thursday. I don't know. This show sheet's been done for a few days.
It was early.
I've had Akers kind of penciled in there. But the other guy to keep an eye on here right now as a bounce back is J.K. Dobbins. Why aren't we talking about him? Did he just suddenly disappear? I know he hasn't been played all season, but as far as fantasy enthusiasts and analysis out there, we're not talking about him nearly enough. And now it's the off season. We need to get talking. Maybe people are keeping their mouths shut to maybe slide in some low-key trades. Maybe they're trying to do that. But you know what? We're not about that. We're here to help you win your leagues. And J.K. Dobbins is that guy that's going to help you win some leagues. Go out there, trade him. Maybe people have forgotten all about him, what he can do, because when he's in the lineup, he is one of the best running backs when it comes to yards per carry in the entire National Football League. Huge bounce back potential in 2022, even with my man, Gus Edwards there. Latavius Murray, garbage. You know what I mean? Tyson Williams, get out of here. I mean, this is going to be J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards backfield once again. Devontae Freeman, okay, we're going to move on here. Now, under the radar, we kind of maybe Travis Etienne, maybe he's under the radar. Maybe J.K. Dobbins is a little bit under the radar. Who are some more of these under the radar ads, these forgotten players that we need to be talking about here for the next season here?
I'm going with my Melvin Gordon. People forget about that Denver's offense altogether. They don't really talk too much about that team for some reason. They have a lot of talent around there. I think they're just missing a quarterback. I think that's going to be addressed this year, this offseason with a veteran quarterback. So, but I think Melvin is going to be on his way somewhere else. I know you're going to talk about that a little bit later, Matt, but he's still performing even at his age. Just under 1,000 yards this year, 8 touchdowns rushing. He another 2 touchdowns receiving. So he's giving you value in both the passing and rushing game. And he, to me, still like he has that burst. I don't have the stats in front of me, but just looking at highlights every week, he tends to have, a 40-yard run every week, a 30-yard run every week. So he's giving you those big plays. So I think he still has some gas in the tank, but I really like Melvin Gordon, and hopefully he can get to a situation where he can be, if he's not the man, he can have the majority of that timeshare in the backfield. He can show you what he can do.
Yeah, I love Melvin Gordon. I mean, we knew what this Broncos backfield was going to be before the season started. We knew it was going to be a 1A, 1B type thing. We knew the carries were going to be almost 50%. That is how it turned out. And Melvin Gordon, he absolutely performed. I love what we're doing here because we went with under the radar, forgotten players, and yet we both matched each other's with the franchise here. So for me, it's going to be Penny for your thoughts. Have we forgotten about Chris Carson here so far? I mean, people are starting to drink that Rashad Penny Kool-Aid once again. He's going to be Chris Carson is going to be a free agent. He's coming off an injury. I mean, Chris Carson is like the Rodney Dangerfield of the NFL as far as running backs are concerned, because we always want to bury him. We always want to forget about how good Chris Carson is. Even when he has a good season, we're like, yeah, Rashad Penny's going to replace him. DJ Dallas is going to replace. No, stop it. Chris Carson can absolutely own a backfield. And there's some good places that he could end up here in the offseason. I don't know. Maybe the Seattle Seahawks, maybe they're drinking that Rashad Penny Kool-Aid once again here, because I don't know what they're going to do. I think Penny might even be a free agent as well. And I don't know if they picked up his 5th-year option. So, I mean, things could get interesting in Seattle as far as that backfield is concerned. But the guy I'm looking at adding, I agree with you. I love Melvin Gordon, but I love Chris Carson. Another guy we're not talking about right now. And I don't think we never talk about it. Even when he's healthy and top 12 in rushing yards, we're not talking about him. It's right. The disrespect. It has to stop. Now, tell me where you think Chris Carson is going to end up. Kind of, we're matching a free agent with a new location here. You went with Chris Carson. Where are you sending him to?
I like Chris Carson to go to Houston. The backfield in Houston is a disaster. Like, let's not even talk about that trade that just like the worst trade in NFL history. I'm not even going into that. You had Lindsey Phillip back there. Who else they have back there? They had another veteran.
Rex Burkhead, big contract, just signed another one.
But he looked pretty good. He had a couple good runs, towards the end of the season. But if you can get Chris Carson back there, a veteran who still has some juice, the guy runs hard. He's one of those type of players that can change like the whole mentality of your offense. Like, he's one of those tough guys. He's going to run through things, and that stuff is contagious. That rubs off on your receivers. Your offensive lineman blocks a little bit harder for you now because you have someone who's running that rock behind you with some oomph. But yeah, again, like you said, Chris Carter is probably one of the most underrated, most disrespected running backs in the game. The guy only produces when he's healthy. I think that's the part that people kind of fade him a little bit, is that health part. But I think he still got some juice left, and I think Houston would be a great spot for him.
I don't hate it. I absolutely do not hate it. Maybe Chris Carson will get a little bit of love down there. I think Houston Texans they're doing some better things. They won some games they probably shouldn't have. Unfortunately for Coley, he got fired, but I mean, he was in a lose-lose situation down there in Houston. I don't think anyone could have done anything with that job. But we talk about pairing a good offensive mind with a good young quarterback. Would you say that Leonard Fournette has had a pretty good revival with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yep.
All right, so let's just kind of play devil's advocate here. Let's maybe try and make some predictions here. How about Brian Leftwich ends up in Miami coaching Tua Tagovailoa? He needs a running back. Myles Gaskin is not the answer for me, but Melvin Gordon, he certainly can be. Let's bring an old wily vet like Melvin Gordon over to Miami. The sun will do wonders for him there. Leonard Fournette, he succeeded, had lots of success in that Brian Leftwich type offense. Yeah, okay, Tom Brady had a little bit something to do with all that. But Melvin Gordon, we see what he can do. He's still a borderline 1,000-yard rusher in this league. You put him there with Tua Tagovailoa, good offensive coordinator, good offensive-minded coach there in Brian Leftwich potentially. And then you still got Jalen Waddle there. You've still got Devontae Parker. You've still got some weapons there for the Miami Dolphins. I think this could be a fantastic spot for Melvin Gordon to go to. And it kind of, I mean, I'm more comfortable having Melvin Gordon having Myles Gaskin in the backfield than I am Melvin Gordon with Javonte Williams in the backfield, because that's just ugly for everyone. We know Myles Gaskin ain't going to beat out Melvin Gordon. We know that for a fact. And Melvin Gordon, he still can do it both in the run game and the pass game. So I really like what he could do with a young quarterback there, give a quarterback some confidence. He can pass. He's good in pass pro too. Melvin Gordon, he's improved on that quite a bit since he came in from Wisconsin. And this just seems like a natural fit for me. Now, I just mentioned pass pro because I want to transition into this rookie class heading in here for the season here. And we both have different opinions here on who the top rookie running back is going to be. And I will throw full disclosure. I think you're on the same wavelength I am. It really depends on the landing spots of these running backs, more so this year than maybe last year. Yeah. Last year, we had a few better options at the running back position. This year, it's kind of wide open. We don't have that guy like that Najee Harris, that Javonte Williams. I don't know if any of these running backs are there yet, but who knows? Maybe they turn into an Elijah Mitchell. We're not talking about him. And all of a sudden, Elijah Mitchell, he is a top 3 rookie running back from this last class. Can someone step up in that role? Major, who's that running back for you?
Breece Hall is the man. Like you said, I think the top 3 backs, you have Breece Hall, you have Isaiah Spiller, you have Kenny Walker. Those 3, I think, are kind of interchangeable at this point. I think the draft, a combine is going to be really big for those 3 guys. But there's a cutoff after that. There's a drop off. So, and to me, Breece is the most well-rounded of all. I think he's probably the fastest one out of all of them. Really deceptive speed. The guy gets to the edge every single time. I'm like, he's not going to make it, and he makes it every time. The guy's a good receiver out the backfield. I think all 3 of these guys really not that good at blocking at this point in their careers, but I just think Breece, if he gets into one of these zone offenses, he's going to fit right in and be able to contribute right away. But to me, he's number 1 right now, just based off of size, speed, hands. To me, he's the most well-rounded.
If you would have asked me at the beginning of the season who my number 1 running back would have been, it would have been Breece Hall. I mean, he looked like out of Iowa State. We watched him for a couple seasons. He looked dominant. I mean, a little bit of a down year this year, I guess, if you want to call it that. But you mentioned Kenneth Walker. He came out of nowhere. He was not being used at Wake Forest. Also, He transfers over to Michigan State. Absolutely goes off. Kieran Williams there out of Notre Dame, another good running back. James Cook, Georgia. Hassan Haskins there out of Michigan. And maybe my favorite running back. I don't think he's going to be the best running back, but he has that potential to be that Elijah Mitchell type running back. Rashad White out of Arizona State. Now, I don't want to get bit by the Arizona State. I fell in love with Kellen Ballage a few years back. I'm not going to do it again. Arizona State scares me as far as running backs are concerned, but he is exciting, especially in the pass game, especially when he gets in open space. But for me, you mentioned him. For me, it's Isaiah Spiller as the top running back. Good vision, patience, great jump cut. He's got the burst. He's got good hands, tracks the ball well. But like most college running backs, he still needs to work on that pass protection. That's the difference, I think, for a lot of these running backs coming in compared to where they're at. Najee Harris obviously was solid coming out of Alabama as a pass protector, and he had to learn pretty quickly with that offensive line in Pittsburgh that he's going to have to pass protect more often than not. So for me, I got Isaiah Spiller as my top running back. You got Breece Hall. Either one of these, I think it's 1A, 1B, to be honest with you. I can see an argument for either one, and I really think it's going to come down to who lands where and what system suits these running backs the best, because they really are very similar to each other. Both have size, both have power, both have some burst. So, you know what? That is our running back watch list. Hey, keep listening because we're going to keep coming, because next up, we've got the Dynasty running backs. We've got our rankings coming at you. Major's rankings, my rankings, and I'll tell you how and why Major is wrong with his rankings. Stay tuned.